Welcome to Abilene Means Business, the Abilene Area Chamber of Commerce's monthly show where we highlight one of our members and visit with them about their business and what it's like to do business in Abilene. I am James Holland, the Executive Director of the Chamber, and I'm your host, as I have been now for several years with different things. So anyway, today our guest is Curtis Oslin. He's the owner of Abilene CPAP Sales and Supply. How's it going, Curtis?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. And we're going to visit a little bit. So tell us a little bit about the business, Abilene CPAP, and yourself, and kind of how you got involved in the business.
Well, I'm a paramedic and working in 24-hour shifts for probably the last 13 or 14 years. Basically, I woke up mornings after morning after morning with headaches. And I visited with my doctor, and he sent me for a sleep study, found out that I had sleep apnea. So, after many years of never sleeping a night for one reason or another, I found out that the quality of my sleep was just so poor because I wasn't getting sleep when I was trying to sleep. So basically, that's kind of what led me into the realm of trying to help other people get sleep, is the fact that I knew I wasn't getting sleep, and for whatever various reasons, I could help other people try to get a good night's sleep as well.
Sure. So were you an EMT here or somewhere else before you came here?
I worked out in Larned as when I started in EMS. I grew up here, and then I moved out to Great Bend to do EMT and paramedic school, and worked in Larned, and then moved back home. So I've been here now working with EMS since 2009 and here.
Okay. Okay. So when did Abilene CPAP open? I know it used to be a block over here.
Right. We opened. It'll be 2014, and August of 2014.
Seems like you've been around longer than that to me for some reason. It seems like you've been kind of a fixture down here for a while.
Right.
So appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about now CPAP stands for Continuous Positive Airway Pressure.
Yep.
Right. Tell us a little bit about what that. I mean, how sleep apnea and how a CPAP machine kind of helps that out.
Well, so essentially what we find is you go have a home sleep study or a sleep study, they determine many different factors over that period, how many times you stop breathing, how many times you're breathing too shallow, what kind of apneas you're having, all sorts of different things. And then the doctor will prescribe a CPAP or BiPAP for you, determining on what's going on with you while you're sleeping. So most generally, the larger population just has a CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure, which basically all it does is it acts like a splint. So when you put the mask on at night, it blows whatever pressure you need for that night down your airway to keep it open. So no matter what happens, no matter how much food you eat or whatever incidents happen during the day, the machine can maintain your airway to keep you asleep longer and more restful. And the science is way more in depth than that, but essentially in a nutshell, that's pretty much how that works.
Yeah.
So,
and there's some pictures here on the wall of what those some of the devices look like, for at least in terms of what you're going to be wearing while you're sleeping.
Right.
Do people have a hard time getting accustomed to that, or is it something that you very quickly grow into? If that's,
I think what we try to do is educate everybody that comes in here to know that this is not going to be an easy transition process for you. Depending on your age, most of our customers are not in their teens and 20s. So, person's been sleeping for 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 years without a mask on their face. And so we try to coach them and teach them how and what to expect to go along with it. We don't just hand over the CPAP and the mask and say good luck and send them out the door. We spend 30 to 40 minutes up to an hour sometimes with people, just trying to teach them every aspect of what they can expect to happen while they're sleeping. And we also open up, my wife works here too, she's a nurse, and she's here to field questions when people call. So we try to have somebody who's medically trained, and also both her and I both wear CPAP. So we're both, we both kind of went through the trials with everything as far as the masks are concerned.
Yeah.
And just what to expect, because they're gonna leak, it's gonna blow in your face, it might wake you up. There's all sorts of things that's gonna happen. And so we just try to coach everybody on to expect that this isn't something you're going to go home, put the mask on, and tomorrow it's going to be the best day ever, and for the next 20 years it's just going to work like magic.
Yeah.
There are going to be nights where it's just not going to be that great. So.
Sure. Yeah, and I had first heard about sleep apnea and some of the details of it probably about 6 or 7 years ago at a human resources and insurance presentation that was going on, and a company came in and talked about it. And I guess it's being more commonly accepted by larger companies that it's something your company or insurance is going to cover because it helps productivity, right?
Right.
And so tell us a little bit about how you've kind of watched this kind of grow in the last few years. What's really been the impetus for that to happen?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that people have seen, and what industry has really taken the lead as far as making it a more mandatory thing, is the Department of Transportation, and that the United States Department of Transportation. They have really taken a role at, if you are a truck driver and you meet certain criteria, whether it's high blood pressure, neck size, or anything like that, you will have to get a sleep study done, because they've determined that certain factors are leading to people having sleep apnea. And it just makes sense, because we don't want people driving an 80,000 pound rig down the road and 2 o'clock in the afternoon after they've quote unquote slept all night long and falling asleep in the middle of the afternoon. There are so many factors that can play a role into that. So that's who really started it. And then there's a lot more people that are really looking deeply into it, because insurance companies, as far as vehicle insurance companies and the state insurers and things like that for different entities, are looking into it, because they're seeing that they have people out there driving their vehicles around all the time, putting thousands of miles on them, that have medical issues.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's in everything, and I think it's going to grow even more into police and fire, EMS, and the state guys that drive the snow plows and stuff like that. I think you're going to start seeing them be mandatory if they fit a criteria too.
Sure.
So
yeah, and here in Abilene, there's there's several different medical device type of companies, the smaller companies that supply these things, and you obviously are one of those. Tell us a little bit about the hospital. I mean, I know that they have a new sleep lab that they opened up, and there's some other. Tell me about what the relationship is between, your company, the hospital, sleep labs, maybe in Salina, that type of thing.
Well, I think that what the hospital found is that there's a large population of people that want to try to fix medical problems, and all of it stems back to sleep. And so I think that having the hospital having an in-lab sleep center, it just is something that's another great benefit to our community. People don't have to drive to Salina to get an in-lab sleep study. You can get an in-lab sleep study through them. You can get home sleep studies through us. And you don't have to leave town and try to balance out your life so that you can go to Salina and spend the night and then get up the next day and try to come home after a sleep study never is going to be a night where you're one big quality night's sleep. So
right.
It's one of those things where people can just go right up here and get it done, and I think it's a great benefit to our community.
Sure. And it's been probably about a year since that opened up, right?
Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah.
So I mean, do they get sleep study there, and then they're referred to you for supply, or how is that?
They get their sleep study there, and then I'm assuming that for the most part they just refer them down to us.
Okay.
Because it's up to them really, the customer, if they want to get their stuff here, or they want to go to Salina, they can. I think there's some sort of a level of privacy that people like to have, and so
sure.
We try to uphold that to the highest standard of all. So
yeah. Is this something that's on the radar of the family physicians?
Oh yeah.
Your standard. Okay.
Yeah.
So those folks, I mean, they're educated on its effects and can recognize it and
Absolutely.
make those suggestions.
Yep.
Is it something that it doesn't sound to me like you'd need a doctor's order to get a sleep study done, or
yeah, you
do.
Yep.
You can't just walk in on the street and say, "Hey, I want one."
You can walk in off the
who's
street
gonna do
and say,
that,
well, I mean, there are
Yeah.
people out there that they'll come in and talk to us and ask questions about, this is going on with me, this is going on with me, this is going, whatever that may be. I'm sitting here talking to you, and the next thing I know, I look over and you're asleep. That would be an indicator that you probably need a sleep study. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so that's...
Or a couple cups of coffee.
Right, yeah. That generally, those are indicators where people will come in and talk to us. I mean, sleep studies or sleep issues were founded off of a doctor that was studying insomnia in the 50s. And he didn't want to be a sleep doctor. He wanted to be a psychiatrist and study insomnia. And he just stumbled onto it as far as why people were staying awake all night long. And so it's pretty amazing how even in 2017, this has been studied really since 1950, and we're still just scratching the surface of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
yeah, cool. So do you also get, I mean, there's facilities in Salina probably, and obviously as well. Do you find a lot of people here locally are shopping locally for what you do and at the hospital, or are they still? I mean, what's the dynamic here locally as far as your customer base?
I think that we get the majority of people that live in Dickinson County, even some that live outside of Dickinson County. But for the most part, I think most people come and shop local.
Sure.
So I'm glad for that. I mean, I really am, because we try to keep everything as local as possible too. So
yeah, yeah. Well, and your location is here downtown the United Trust building. If you don't know where they're at, it's 300 block. What's your actual 300 suite?
103, 300 North Cedar, Suite 103.
Yeah, right here in the United Trust building on the main floor. And so if you're on the bow, you'll see a moon with a sleeping cap on. That's the logo. So what's it like being a business owner downtown? Traffic's good and facilities good. What are your thoughts about that?
A lot of people found out that we were down here because they drove by and saw the sign. I mean, when we ask how they found us, they see the big sign on the window, and most people, that's been our common, as far as getting people to come in.
Sure.
Has been just sight or word of mouth. I mean, the doctor's office has been very good at referring us patients and letting people know that we're here. So that's been the greatest thing of all time, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely a recognizable logo, and so you definitely have that marketing working pretty well out there. I know that.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a good question. Where and how do you market your product other than working more directly with the hospitals and sleep?
Well, we use Facebook. That's one of our biggest marketing tools. In the past, we've used the newspaper. We don't use it as much anymore because it's just something that hasn't been a need, I think. Radio commercials on 99 kg have been real good for us too. But as far as the marketing thing, Facebook has been one of our easiest places to do it at. So.
Yeah. We need top of head awareness, and so you have to hit a lot of different mediums sometimes.
Yep.
And I'm not sure what the statistic is on there, but somebody's got to see you 3 or 4 times before it really kind of clicks, and
right.
So put it out there. Where do you see a lot of room for growth in this? Do you see a lot of our local larger companies really taking notice of it? I mean, what's your prognostication on these things?
Well, it's funny because we've been asked to open a store up in Salina by some of the physicians from Salina that like what we do, because they like how much we educate our customers and our patients, because when they go back to the doctor, they have a thorough knowledge of understanding of what the quote-unquote disease they have is. And we try our hardest to make sure that they understand what happened during their sleep study, to the how long they slept to the minute, how many times they stopped breathing, and explain to them all of those details along with the medical implications that can go along with that. Like, if you don't treat it, this is what's going to happen, this is what you can look forward to. Because it's not just, I'm not going to be tired the next day. It's, you're looking at the possibility of having heart disease, strokes, all sorts of diabetes, and then the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
High blood pressure. These are all things that are going to be fixed by getting a good, decent night's sleep.
Yeah.
And I know that one of my biggest difficulties is when talking to people about their sleep and some things that are concerning as far as their medical conditions go, they all automatically believe that, well, you're just trying to sell me something. It's not necessarily true. I've worked in medicine since 2003. My wife has worked in medicine since 2002, and I mean, we've just been helping and caring for people, and despite they don't have to have their sleep study done here, they don't have to buy their CPAP here. I just want them to, you know, I don't want to have to go and pick them out in the ambulance because they had a heart attack when it was something that was easily preventable.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah, and I think the long-term effects of, I mean, like you say, you're just scratching the surface on how that really affects a person's health and you know, both mental and physically. It probably has a lot more to do with it than people think.
Oh, sure.
And finding those connections is going to be very important. So the office here, so you also have Sherry, your wife, works with you.
Yep.
What does she do? What was her medical background?
She was an RN originally. She's worked here at Village Manor and in Salina at the ER for many years, and then she helped work with Salina getting them qualified to be a trauma center, and then she came back to Village Manor as the clinical manager. And as we've grown and became more busy and really had the need to have both of us down here for a majority of the time, she's working just part-time at the hospital now and then works down here.
Yeah.
And she's just she's really our main big contact between doctors' offices and working with the nurses and the doctors to update, you know, prescriptions and help people, you know, get the things that they need as far as all of that is concerned. And as well as, you know, she does the CPAP setups and educates people on their sleep studies. And also when we just have somebody that comes in and has questions about sleep apnea and the effects of it, I mean, we try to educate ourselves as much as possible because the list is enormous. So if there's something that, you know, people are concerned about, what's going on with them that they think that could be resolved by sleep, they're more than welcome to come down, just ask questions, because we'll tell you whether or not we believe you have a sleep disorder, and we're not going to just sell you something. If you have questions, we have tests that you can take, and if we don't believe that that's an issue, then we'll tell you probably not. Yeah. But it never hurts to have a sleep study done. It's fairly simple.
Yeah, sure.
So,
yeah, and you've got actually, and you can't see this off camera, but there are several different types of machines and masks and things in here. Are these all for sale? Are they for lease, or what's the, you know, how does all that work if somebody is interested? You know, what kind of obligation do they have with that type of thing?
Well, we bill everything to insurance, and if you don't have insurance, then we have we priced everything off the internet. So if you could go buy it off the internet, we try to compete with the internet as far as the price is concerned and save you shipping costs, or, you know, if you have Amazon Prime, you don't have any, but we save you time in getting it because you can just come down and pick it up, and we're going to charge you the same as what if you came in and showed me a piece of paper and said I can buy that mask off of here for this, then I'll probably sell it to you for that.
Yeah.
So
that's one of the good things about working with somebody local.
We take payment plans and we do all sorts of different things. But like you said, most of the everything is usually covered by insurance. It's all subject to your deductible and your co-insurance. So we take almost every insurance carrier there is besides United Healthcare. So
yeah. Well, just to reiterate, now for the viewers at home, if you've heard this conversation and you're wondering, well, I wonder, you know, I kind of wake up and I'm not, you know, what are the real key signs to look for? And maybe you've already covered them, but I think it's good to go over it again.
Right.
Just so, you know, you out there, if there's something going on with your sleep pattern or something that you think is not exactly correct, what would those things be that they'd be looking for?
Well, some of the major signs that you have a sleep disorder is, number one, you wake up tired. And that's one of the big things that they look for. You wake up with a headache, you wake up irritable. It's not just I need my cup of coffee. It really isn't that. It is more in depth than that. Yeah. If you're, and not just groggy, I'm talking irritable. If a cup of coffee fixes it, it's probably not a problem. But if you can't hardly stay awake at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whenever in the middle of the day, then that's a good sign of it. If you have headaches when you wake up, one other big indicator is how long it takes you to fall asleep. If you are the kind of person that can lay down your head on the pillow and within minutes you're asleep, there's a good chance that you have a sleep disorder. Snoring is not necessarily an indicator that you have sleep apnea, but depending on the kind of snore, if your spouse says, you're pulling the ceiling down every time you take a breath in. Those are indicators that it's really important really not to ignore that, because not necessarily so much how many times we stop breathing during the night is an issue. It's the oxygen in your blood that's not circulating throughout your body is really the issue. And that's what's causing all the medical problems, from heart disease to depression to anxiety to high blood pressure to all sorts of different things. And the list is pretty massive, and essentially fixing your sleep fixes the problem.
Yeah. Well, and apparently it affects more than just yourself if your spouse and children and whatnot are having a hard time falling asleep because you're a freight train, then that there are benefits to others as well.
Right,
so,
exactly. And we also find that people that have their spouse comes in and get a sleep study and a CPAP, usually then the other spouse is not too far behind, because now they're keeping the other one awake.
Yeah.
So they're sitting there sleeping with their CPAP, and their wife or husband are snoring next to them.
Yeah, it's a symbiotic cycle there. Yeah. Well, that's quite a bit of good information, and I'll tell you what, I imagine there's a lot of people out there that have listened to this and are going, maybe I need to look into that, and they can do their research and talk to their doctor and see how it works out. But we're really glad to have it locally, and I appreciate it, Curtis.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, once again, Abilene CPAP here on Cedar Street, 300 block. And this is Curtis, if you want to stop in. And anything you've heard rings a bell there, don't mind talking to him or your doctor or whoever to kind of find out if this is something that maybe you have. And it is obviously an emerging thing that people are taking care of. So that's all good news. Jenna, I want to appreciate your time today.
Thanks.
Okay, yeah. And anyway, we're approaching the end of January. This year, of course, normally the second Tuesday of each year is the Abilene Area Chamber Banquet. This year, that would happen to fall on Valentine's Day, and so rather than getting the guys in trouble, we figured we'd move it to February the 7th. So our banquet is February 7th this year. We do have Jason Opat is our featured speaker. He's a member of the Kansas Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame, a filmmaker. He's worked on several blockbuster movies and has a really good, he's born and raised here, went to Los Angeles, decided to come back and start his film company here. And so he's a very interesting and inspiring individual. So for those of you who are going to the banquet, that's what we have to look forward to. If you do not have your tickets yet, you can contact the Chamber office at 785-263-1770. We have less than 20 tickets left, so maybe when this is airing early enough prior to February 7th, you can get your ticket by calling us. So that's kind of what's exciting. This is our 89th annual, which is we're getting quite a track record of history here. So anyway, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate Curtis. And you have been watching Abilene Means Business.